let's do our Pledge of Allegiance. Send and the. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good, with feeling. Way to go. Way to go, Murph. All right, so we'll begin the Wednesday, August 13th, 2023 meeting of the Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force Advisory Board at the Mound House with a roll call.
Rose Larkin, present.
Mary Rose Valletta, present.
Robert Howell, present.
Wendy D. Gaetano, present.
Jennifer Rusk, present.
Steve Johnson, present.
Bill Veach, Council Liaison, present.
Excellent. And we have an excused absence for Dr. Fossum. So let's.
Where is he now? Do we know?
I don't know. I got.
I think Pennsylvania.
Oh, something mundane like Pennsylvania.
Exotic Pennsylvania.
Wait a minute. You're from
That's my top.
Pennsylvania. You're suggesting you're mundane?
Oh dear.
All right. So excuse absence for Dr. Fossum. And we shall continue on. So we did the roll call. Let's approve the agenda.
Other than the dates not correct.
Of the agenda. Is that correct? So I just read that incorrectly. So it's August,
September
13th. Yeah, so there's a clarification there that the agenda is incorrect. Should be September 13th. And also I had noticed that staff update was missing again from the agenda after we had requested it and had received it last time. I don't know what. Austin, were you provided any type of a staff update or anything? For the
Yeah, I do have a staff report if that's what you were looking for.
Wonderful. Okay, usually we like to, so that is part of the agenda. I don't think there needs to be a motion since he said it's going to be included. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I second.
All right, so motion by Mary Rose Valletta, second by Wendy De Gaetano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion is unanimously approved, 6-0. And approval of previous meeting minutes. So you all received the last 3 copies.
We do.
Unfortunately, mine were on my computer and I highlighted the changes that were required and I don't have a copy here, but
You may have mine, because the only thing on the July 12th, the only thing I saw was a minor typo.
okay.
But all the rest are here, that's 3 of them.
Yeah, so these can be originals to sign. Are they marked up? That's okay.
No, I didn't mark them up, I just wrote up on top, I either
Oh, I
wrote
see your
okay or one
amendments.
typo, that's all.
I see, okay. So,
We know who the school teacher is.
I haven't
July,
seen it.
August.
Haven't seen it.
Chad did send them.
Face. I usually circle it in
Maybe I
red.
missed
My
it.
teacher usually uses that.
Oh,
Yeah. that's
otherwise they
Should I,
don't see
can
it.
I look at it?
back from
Or no?
using red.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
it's negative,
This
isn't
is
it?
like Eva
But it's
said.
highly visible.
Ava did, yeah, Ava did.
She does such a good job, I think.
Yeah.
The way she
does-
summarizes
She does a
things.
terrific job.
Yeah.
She's a prize, yeah.
She deserves.
She's one of our staff prizes. Since, we'll take one moment here.
There was just one minor typo that I saw. Jennifer, do you see? It's written up on top. It wasn't even
From
important.
the last meeting.
No, I think it was the previous one.
For July 12th meeting,
Yeah, there's an asterisk.
Typo?
Yeah, see it down there? It's just one word is misspelled.
water faucets.
Yeah, I
You
think
done with
that's
this
it.
one? 'Cause I
Yeah.
think there was correction I had on this.
Instead of facets. Right, it's faucets. Right. I did compare them with my notes. They seemed rather quite
here's the
accurate.
one I have.
Did you find something?
So on the Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, Under council report update, it says Chair Johnson stated that a multifamily dock ordinance was out of scope. I said that it was something that we would be actually willing to look into.
So it is within our
That was
scope.
brought to us, yeah, by Sarah
Okay.
Probst at one point, asked if that's something that MERS would be.
Well, that's important. Yeah, we
considered.
better
And I said,
correct
well,
that.
since it's a marine, involves a marine environment, obviously. That's something, if we were so asked to do, we would look into that. So that was just a correction I had. So basically, Chair Johnson stated, would be in MERS scope, I'll say. Be in. All right. The other one I had actually was, for that was a different one. Let me find it here, was actually where I think staff liaison Schutz had mentioned that there was a new 501(c) on the island that was designed to benefit FWC. And I was gonna ask him if he wanted to correct that, because I don't think that's the objective of that organization.
Unless there's one that we don't know about.
So anyway, that's the only additions I had, amendments. Does anybody else have any other amendments for the past 3 meeting minutes?
So I'll move that the minutes be accepted as amended with those 2 corrections and the minor typo.
Okay, I'll second that. For discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Motion carries unanimously. Motion by Spalletta, second by Johnson. All right, so that's good to get that moving along, although, did we have last meeting? Was one of those last meetings, July?
Yeah, I think so.
August, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to sign these and we'll get these to us and to deliver to Eva. All right, moving along here. Public comment, seeing none, we'll keep moving along here. So first item up, current items, is the vegetation and tree ordinance. That was placed back on just because it didn't seem to have gone anywhere since our last visit with it. So was there anything, and I believe Rose was not present at our last meeting?
Right, I was
Correct.
absent in August, so therefore,
So just to bring me up to speed, I think maybe saw in the minutes, the only suggestion we had was for the vegetation order to add the 75% native, 25%
right.
flora friendly, non-native.
And you made that recommendation, and I believe that was mentioned at the
Mhm.
management and planning meeting.
Okay,
But then, see, it's vegetation/tree ordinance, there's 2 ordinances.
mhm.
And the first, and what was
Well, that's
presented,
3, because we also have the water.
water one, right?
Water one, yeah.
But the water one is kind of countywide, and we're just kind
It's a
of
model
adding that
ordinance.
on, and that's kind of a wash. But there's 2 separate ordinances dealing with vegetation, and still kind of have not dealt with both of them. The tree ordinance that was proposed at the management and planning meeting is exactly the same as the draft that was proposed to us in April of last year in 2022. And when that was proposed and we reviewed it, I had written notes on that. I didn't see any of those changes being accepted, just things that had been left out or things that were good that were added in. So since April of last year, that tree protection draft is exactly the same.
So it didn't reflect the updates that we had provided staff,
It reflected some of the updates that were provided, yes,
but not all of them? you're saying?
but not all of them.
Okay,
And then there's the vegetation piece, that's separate. And the vegetation piece is on that open space buffering and landscaping. And a large part of that deals with commercial property But it also has comments in there about for single and residential buildings. So it also incorporates just regular residential property in it. And so that has not been revised or edited or updated at all since we did the original proposals back in December, January of 2022. January of 2022. And at the meeting in July, in the meeting minutes, it was actually recorded that Chair Johnson was discussing this timeline that we had gone through of how this whole thing had progressed over the last several years. And he suggested tabling it to this last meeting to review and vote on final recommendations. And then the project manager was going to resend the tree and vegetation ordinances, plural, to MERT members. And he failed to do that. And while I was on vacation, I sent him a reminder that he had not sent out the vegetation ordinance to people. And I had said that I was visiting numerous or several national parks and that I had very limited cell phone and internet service. And so I had asked him to send out the open space buffering and landscaping ordinance to all of you. And his reply was, like I said before, we all have a lot on our plate. This is quote, please help staff and attach what you would like to send to the other members. The ordinance is a public document accessible to everyone regardless. Have a great vacation. So that was his response. And so he never sent it to you. And I have very limited internet. And it was like, that message was from, oh gosh, the 7th, and you guys were meeting on the 9th. So you didn't get it, and it still hasn't been addressed. And a lot of the recommendations that we had made dealt with both the tree protection ordinance and the vegetation ordinance. So I don't know what we want to do with that. At the management and planning meeting, it was the advice that he follow what his recommendations were and write a new proposal, a draft, so that could be voted on for the tree protection. Still have not addressed any of the vegetation ordinance pieces. So I don't know.
Correct. There has not been a red line. I mean, to bring, I'm not sure, Bill, you were there. Yeah, it didn't go particularly well. I mean, it was just, what do you think? Or do you want to give us feedback where typically you provide then the draft,
Well, yeah,
ordinance with changes, which wasn't done, so it was left.
And that was during the agenda management part of it, and I was trying to get it on the agenda.
Correct, right.
In which in the agenda, they'd have to have some kind of whatever they're proposing in front of us.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Right. So that was, in my opinion, a waste of time.
Why are these balls being dropped constantly on something that's been worked on for over 2 years?
Well, I
That's
mean,
concerning.
obviously there's, since the last year, it's been a little difficult. There's a lot of things going on.
I get that.
But I'm not apologizing for it. I've been trying to get this on the agenda and things come up that I don't really care about, but I'm only one in time.
And you're the only one, because you're a liaison to recommend it's on the agenda.
Anybody can recommend that, but I'm, some liaison, I'm the one who knows that it's been being worked on, and of course,
Okay.
a lot of staff has turned over.
Well, I think there's a lot on everybody's plate, and this is on our plate.
Mm-hmm,
And this
right.
is something we're trying to get resolved.
Get off our plate.
That's been going on for,
And I've been,
Well, I think
I've been saying this not just about the tree and the vegetation ordinance, but I think it's important to get these things in place, like before people are really rebuilding, so that they
give direction.
certainty and
exactly,
create some consistency.
exactly.
They came at us about the sunshine law not too long ago. And we're trying to do everything we can to go through whoever we need to make sure the information is getting out to whoever it needs to go. Is there someone we can, is there some way we can appoint either one person or an assistant, not necessarily an assistant for Chad, or one person from the group or from the committee that we can say, okay, if this isn't happening with Chad can then say, okay, I need help doing this. Can you please forward this out? I'm not, you guys kind of pick up what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so Chad doesn't have an assistant. He has a lot on his plate. If we're trying to get him to send something out or trying to get something communicated, could he then reach out to Steve and say, okay, I don't have time for this. Can you please forward this to everyone? Is that within the sunshine law? If he gives that,
No, not to my understanding.
I think basically the town has a policy that they don't want to be subjective about what is and isn't part of the sunshine law. It's basically, this is the hard line. You just don't talk. It's not what's allowable and what's not. It's just, you just don't do it. So then it doesn't become subjective. It doesn't, it's, then there's not even a case for it. So,
but if the information isn't getting put out there, we can't.
well, then the town
do
needs to
anything with
figure
it.
out how to
That's what
facilitate that, because
Right.
otherwise we're meeting, it reduces our efficiency, our effectiveness. So,
Not putting more on your plate, Bill, but would that be something that he could say, can you forward this? Since you're not technically on the committee. I mean, even if it was just like,
Well,
here's
the
an
thing-
email.
Thing is, well,
Bill doesn't have enough going on.
no, but I can't relay,
Right,
even though I'm not part of the committee, I can't,
that's what I was getting
tell
at.
Barry Rose.
Daisy
this is
chain,
what
relay.
Steve said or something.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find some way that when he's overwhelmed, but we have information that's out there that we need, but we can't get it because we're not allowed to tell each other.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not able or willing to do it, who is, who
Mhm.
can be?
Yeah.
But the problem also is the time factor. This draft is the same from April of last year, and it's now over a year.
Basically,
To
it
go
wasn't
back and
updated.
go through it all again, I mean,
What's missing are updates. I think
even
is
for me,
the point.
it takes a lot to go back through it again. So there's that wasted time of just starting something and not finishing it in a timely manner,
Mm-hmm.
and then having to go back and start over again.
Trying to remember where you
And
were.
everybody, and then everybody that brings it up is like, okay, we start over again. And it's like, you don't need to keep starting over, you just need to start and.
Is there someone else at City Hall that we can, when we want to give something to everyone, that we could just forward right to them, that they just forward
Yeah,
the email?
you can't direct staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my ignorance, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find someone or some way that if it's, like, if I have a piece of paper that I want everyone to see, I can't email it to you guys, I send it to Chad, and then I hope he does it, but if not, is there anyone else that could, is my
It
question.
hasn't been effective for our group, basically. It's maybe what the point we're gonna make. That
That's not-
process is not working for us right now.
And it's
Um,
unfortunate because we really can't even talk about the other vegetation ordinance today because nobody has it for well over a year and a half or more.
Mhm.
Well, what do you want to talk about, because you've already made your.
Right, we've already made it, yes.
We don't need to open up a can of worms.
Right,
Okay,
what would be nice is actually to see, the normal process obviously is that our recommendations are incorporated incorporated into the ordinance, redlined, right? Obviously updated, and that's then presented to the council to accept, modify, delete, whatever they want to do with it. And that process is just not working right now. So, and I think maybe the reason we'd like to move along, one is to move it off our plate. As Rose said, the difficulty has been that it's a fairly involved ordinance. So for us to try to immerse ourselves into it again, it's extremely difficult, especially with some of the other stuff we're working on. But also, to your point, Councilman, the town needs it. I mean, they want direction on landscaping. Rose and I are actually volunteers for Let's Go FMB on the residential landscaping subcommittee, and they have voiced, that group has voiced to us that they want, that the residents are asking for direction. What can they can't, what
Well,
they
be
can and can't
careful
do.
if you're serving on some other board together, because that could also be some.
Well, we don't talk about Murph business on there.
But if you talk about this is something that's going to be on the agenda, could be on the agenda. then-
Well, the availability of it,
Yeah.
and also where
I'm just saying, be careful. when
it
you're-
stands.
when
Oh,
you're-
we are so careful. That's our-
I've shared stuff from
That's
the
Rose Careful
Florida
Larkin over
Plant
there.
Society, Master Garden Volunteers Information, and the Estero Island Garden Club. That's my,
representation. I'm a resident.
yes.
So anyway, just to maybe reinforce the fact that we'd like to move it along. So let's move along as it is. So I guess at this point, it remains on the agenda until we see that red line draft with all the content we've provided, we've submitted, and that's ready to go to town council for
And that was
review.
mentioned at the Management and Planning Committee, that there was some confusion before about there was a vegetation ordinance and also a tree ordinance. A lot of people didn't know there was two. And after the meeting with Management and Planning session, I watched that and I watched part of it twice. It was like, I think there's still confusion because they kept asking, are you done with your items? And it was like, yes, I'm done. But the vegetation ordinance was never discussed. It's just all been the tree protection ordinance. And I'm still not sure that the town council, all members of the town council realize that there's another whole piece to this.
That's possible. Thought I mentioned the separate ordinances, but I'm gonna meet with the town manager later this afternoon. I'll bring it up.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else on vegetation?
I actually have something on vegetation. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the ordinances, but I was, someone had reached out to me from the Native Society and discussing donating plants to MERF to give a plant away to residents to inspire them to start planting. And I have to admit, a couple days ago, someone had given me a beautiful native plant, and I haven't had a chance to do anything in my yard because I've been busy, working on the house. And it gave me such inspiration. It made me so incredibly happy. Chris and I are going next week to go buy some plants and get going on our backyard and spruce it up. And that leads me to after Idelia, I had lots of neighbors that actually did a lot of planting in their yard, and a lot of it was not Florida friendly, not native. And when Idelia came up and flooded our street, it killed all their plants.
Mhm.
And they came to me and said, "Don't you have a guide or something for native plants?" And I was giving them away like crazy on my street because my point, I kept talking to them about it, but I think when they visually saw all their plants that they had just planted killed and destroyed, that's a lot of money they spent on landscaping. And I said, "Well, I told you so." I was like, it was sort of a told you so moment. And I said, "Well, if you plant native, they have a better chance in surviving our floods."
Yeah, if they're established, I had some neighbors that had native
If they're
plants.
established, yeah, but you have a better, chance of making it.
And that tide really was destructive, yeah.
And we took it, like we had an experiment in our yard in the buttonwoods,
Mhm.
Silver buttonwoods.
especially the silver. They showed no sign of salt spray. Next thing is just died. And the green buttonwoods, a little bit of around the fringe, but they got a good blast. We had 50-mile-an-hour onshore winds for like 2 days.
Hmm.
And they ended
That's the saltwater.
the saltwater inundations.
So it was actually Randa who contacted me, and they were thinking, well, you could ask for a donation to go towards MRF, in exchange for a plant. But I don't think we want to deal with money at a pop-up.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. For the market, the thing to do is to get the contact from the booth that was selling plants and source them native plants and then give them write-ups on it. Maybe they can even arrange it so that the plant booth is next door to MRF.
And I still don't know because
That way you're not dealing with money.
right.
You're not competing with her.
Right, that's a good idea, because, correct, I did have the head of the market say that they didn't want us to, compete with her. And I don't think giving one plant per person or for free. In fact, I think it would, again, inspire them to go and want to buy more plants. So anyhow, that was my 2 cents on vegetation.
I wonder if that could be like with the Arbor Day tree giveaway that was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
If plants could be in a specific location, I don't want to say here because I don't have approval for that, but in a central location or town hall, and people could come and get a plant.
Right, yeah, that would be good too. And then maybe we just display the plants during the pop-up and let them know they can go and pick it up from town source area.
Did they give you a number, Jen?
So it hasn't, I'm not sure if it's gone to the board yet. It still needed to be approved by the board, but the consensus was that pretty much it probably would be approved because
Yeah, I don't see why not.
their whole, reason for it is to get people to get plants in the ground. So I think they understand our need down here. They understand that we need plants and we need that vegetation. It's, day and night. If you go off island and you're driving around neighborhoods, it's wow, greenery, wow, a tree, a plant,
Yeah.
and then you drive around here and we're obviously lacking greenery. So I think it would be well received with the town to be able to have a free plant. And
Is there a substantial number of plants they're willing to give away?
I don't know yet. It has to be approved by the board, and then I'm sure they'll contact
I
me
see.
and then let me know what they have decided on providing us.
Okay, thanks. And that was the native plant.
Society.
Society, yeah, which, I think you're active in that society, aren't you? Councilman Beach?
I am an assistant.
Assistant to them.
Okay,
But do we all agree that would be a great idea?
absolutely.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I would concur. Okay, so any other topics for vegetation and tree ordinance outside of what we discussed? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is residential canals. We decided to put this on due to the flood of people coming in, public comment, our last meeting, and their situation that's occurring down behind, I guess it's the Beach Theater, is that correct? The two
All
canals?
right, that's the first one.
The first one.
Well, it's the first, but I'm sure if it goes through, there will be others.
Right. So we decided to put it on here to determine what MERF, how it might apply to MERF, or how we can be of assistance as a MERF organization, not just necessarily as residents.
Who manages the canals on Fort Myers Beach? It's the water?
It varies. No, there's no like entity that really controls them. Some of the canals are privately owned,
These two.
some are publicly owned. There's a mishmash of things, but there's no set, it's just in the town jurisdiction. But they're talking about maybe coming up with with like a taxing district or everybody who's on the canal together pays for the maintenance of the canals.
Okay.
Dredging, but
Who theoretically owns it? Is it the
Well,
town's property?
It's like a right of way.
you have to look at the plat.
Oh, it's like a
You
street.
have to look at the plat. You own, I believe,
Some are private.
in some cases, 25% out from the width of the canal as your buildable. Now, I don't know if you actually own that, but that's usually, if you put a dock, if you get 25% of the width, the opposite side gets 25%, and the center is 50% for boats, for travel. So I think their issue, though, was it's a residential canal.
Exactly. Historically, it has.
And what's been the proposal is that becomes a commercial canal with commercial boat traffic using it as a depot at the end of their canal. And they had concerns of size, of disturbances and things like that. So
But my thought on this is if the subject is, or if the question is the subject, is it a subject for MERF to tackle?
right,
And I do believe, in my personal opinion, it is because the more traffic, boat traffic you have up and down canals that aren't residents is causing erosion. And I'm not
Mhm.
erosion, so that is a MERF, something MERF should, keep an eye on. It also is more traffic in those little canals where we have manatees, wildlife living. So I personally think it should be a task for MERF
Are
to
we getting into
discuss.
maritime law though? Water is water, and unless you're touching someone's personal property or dock, the water cannot be regulated by.
it's so multifaceted. I mean, is that actual seawall commercial? I mean, the property zone commercial, is the water.
Commercial or
I mean,
not.
I think the residents there, a couple of things. One is it's the residents there that are going to be affected, obviously, need to voice their opinions, which they have come and done. But certainly anybody that has any kind of open property at the end of their canal that can potentially be used again as a depot. I mean, you can imagine, Fort Myers Beach theme park, right?
Right.
Let's just run our boats over and park and let people run across to the beach and come back at 10 o'clock at night screaming and hollering. And
I'm not disagreeing with what Jen said. I'm just simply saying that if it's water and if it's navigable, as long as you're not touching someone's private property, anybody can go there.
right.
Have we looked into the plat of that canal to see?
No, it's not, I haven't. I, recommended to the residents that they have to see who owns actually the bottom, canal bottom right there. But
Aren't we talking about two canals too, not just the one where
There's
the
two.
It's like a U shape.
theater was? Isn't there another one where Charlie's? Wasn't there some?
there's two, yeah,
where they want to
At Charlie's as well, exactly, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
they're
there's
both,
two there. I
they're
think
both
right
at
next
the end of residential streets that are fully,
Yeah, Becky
lived
Weber
in.
lives at the end of the canal in the bay, with one canal on either side of her.
right,
So that's why she was here, yeah.
right. They're very narrow. Are you gonna, how are you gonna accommodate boats that are wide enough to accommodate bringing a multitude of people as opposed to people who live in the house? When they have trouble even turning their boats around, how is that going to physically even be possible?
Well, the
Yeah.
canal behind Charlie's was very shallow, because I remember dining there and looking down, and
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
very shallow canal. I mean, unless they're coming in by kayak or canoe.
Or they dredge
For
it
some
because there are water depth requirements, I think, for, it's interesting because I know Lee County Comp Plan has a lot to say about commercial, what's considered commercial commercial marina versus residential docks, and there's requirements. They have, I believe, if you are going to attempt a permanent, state has the ability to comment on it, which would include the FWC, the DEP. But there's also a lot of manatee protections as well. I mean, as you guys well know, we're in one of the highest mortality rates in Lee County for manatees. Now, as far as foraging, I don't think there's a lot of seagrass in there in the canals, but certainly I have in my canals as well. They come in and they're shallower, so they're able to,
They
especially in the winter.
They rest in there
They
at night.
do.
Yeah.
In fact, I went kayaking yesterday for my wedding anniversary, and we decided to go up and down some of the canals just to see, how they're looking, and we did see some manatees in the canals. And I, saw some debris floating, plastic bottles, a bag of hot dogs. I don't know why, but anyhow. And so we did some cleanup, but there are manatees in the canals.
Without question. Yeah.
There's a little bit of seagrass in
Mhm.
Matanzas Pass, so at nighttime, or if the babies are resting, mom will go out, but they leave babies in the canals.
Mhm.
And they'll rest in the canals at night because it's safe and quiet.
Yeah. Well, we've actually looked in those specific canals because I'm out there for my wife and I actually for the marine mammal, as you do, Rob. And we've actually had to locate an injured, manatee in those canals. As we looked through those canals, there was one in there. So,
Talk about tight
There's
for a
also
rescue.
oh yeah.
There's also the question of the mangroves that were removed. And my understanding is that still is in process of litigation, and those mangroves might have to be replaced.
I believe they
And
will.
that's a possible
They
outcome.
tore out some from town property, is my understanding. So those do need to be mitigated. So they need to replant those, I believe, and
So that has to be considered before they would think about
right.
lowering boats.
Well,
in
some of that is there's a permit for a seawall there, literally replacing the mangroves. So I don't know. Do you know anything more about this? That
As in front of it,
there's mangroves,
Yeah.
scattered sort of to bring back some of the mangroves. I'm not sure what it is.
It's very complicated, isn't it?
Well, as a residents, yeah. I mean, you've lost that buffer. You've
Right.
lost a lot because that is close to Star Boulevard. Let's face it. I mean, that's a parking lot width to the canal.
That's right.
Certainly at both of those locations, I'd say. So, so as it applies to the MRF Advisory Board, I'm not sure where we would move forward with it outside of researching what's required. I mean, who has authority,
That's
what
really the
sort of
town.
protections, right, that's the town.
The town is gonna have to see, who legally owns and what they're entitled to as a result of owning it. But I think we can make a recommendation that nothing should be changed that will alter the quiet and the singular use,
Mm-hmm,
which has been for those immediate property owners.
mm-hmm.
But, our hands are tied by what
Yeah, it's,
the legal options are.
Right.
We should just encourage the folks that are directly affected by this to just have their voices heard at meetings, I would
That
say.
too.
Right, well, but also maybe to get other residents, because if it starts there, where does it end? Like I said,
Exactly.
Each one of these residential canals could potentially become commercial boat marinas.
Well, why is that one specifically what they want to use? Because the one right next to it has a larger turnaround in it, like the other, I'm looking at it from satellite, the next two canals going south on Estero, they have big turnarounds for commercial traffic that could use easier. So as you say, like it could keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see like that whole area, if they're trying to get stuff back in there, those could also be issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conundrum.
Right.
There's so many properties that are vacant that were residential at the end of canals. You know, there's just no telling what type of a building or development is going to wind up there.
Mhm.
That will definitely impact each and every one of our, residential canals.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna sink the island.
Well,
We're not careful.
so many people are selling and there's so many big businesses coming in that,
Yeah,
Well, I think that, the ones that actually have commercial properties at the end, like the ones that we're discussing, is
Right,
one
they're
thing,
the
but
ones.
there's also, rezoning variance, requests to change residential to whatever could happen. Let's face it, it's all,
these other two that have the turnarounds, they're tennis courts at the ends.
Right.
And
that's Island Winds property.
Right.
yeah.
and then there's like a little one with a pool and that. So, all these could potentially become something for somebody to develop into something.
Well, that could be a multifamily, that's a
Yeah.
multifamily dock, and I know as Ms. Probst had brought to us before, I don't know where that's even at. If there's a policy, if there's an ordinance, or they wanted to find out what our ordinance is and have somebody do some research. So it hasn't been brought to us, but,
So it's a big gray area.
Get voted.
We don't have
So-
anything on the island that is in charge of an ordinance, a statute, whatever, that guides everybody on the canals and who maintains, isn't that state of Florida the one
Coast
that
Guard,
came
isn't it?
through
Coast Guard does that.
and maintain,
that's the WICND,
Well,
right?
like there,
For Laguna
some will
Shores.
maintain like the main channels, the navigation channels, but that doesn't include canals.
Mhm.
because I
So
know
that's what the
after
dredging
Ian,
apparatus passed now.
Yeah, that's
Well, they're doing that because it's a navigation channel.
after Ian, it was the state that came through and cleared our canal, which is enclosed. We have mangroves that grew over the end, and we have the most beautiful canal
Mhm.
on the whole island,
Mhm.
because it's no boats,
Mhm.
occasional paddleboard and kayak and the manatees.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't get to enjoy that. That's sad.
Right.
That woman that was here last month said she just loves the serenity of her,
Mhm.
of her
Nadine,
putting on
yeah.
our canal.
Right. The Beach Theater has requested the okay to put those boat slips in, right? Isn't that in front of council?
Sounds like they're
It's one
moving
of the-
forward.
I haven't seen it come in.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't got the next agenda.
So is it just a rumor that they have applied, or?
Well, it's like,
Hey.
all these developments you hear about, none of those have gone through council.
Hey,
So you can,
We've got by the way, we've got the smartest guy in the room over here.
Yeah.
I just turned over, I said, wait a minute, Austin's there's our harbor master. So Austin, you've heard this discussion. Is there anything you can correct based on our probably speculations on a lot of things?
Where can I start?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what would you like to know about?
Well, so regulatory, who's responsible for canals from a regulatory standpoint?
What part of the canal are you referring to?
The center.
The center, it's just gonna be natural waterways, so the town will monitor it, and any disturbances and stuff like that, we refer it to the county sheriff's department.
Mhm.
Anything on docks and stuff like that is monitored by code enforcement, and any code violations and stuff also do that. All of the canal bottoms and things like that is all state land owned, so
Mhm.
you've got to pull state permits to go ahead and build on that, but you are correct about the 25% that the waterways cannot be impeded on, so that would be that.
Mhm. Look at that. It's 20 minutes of discussion right there. Come in anytime.
So it's 25 feet on both sides?
You can build out to 25% of the net.
On both
waterways. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So from a conservation perspective, is there any conservation regulations as it applies to waterways? And if so, who would have?
All of your
Jurisdiction.
waterways and regulations are gonna fall under speeds and speed zones.
Mhm.
That's how they regulate the waterways. WCIND, which would be your recent, has a flow chart which you can follow that falls under which you can enforce down your canal systems and waterways as well. So I would start there and see what exactly the canals you guys are trying to specify and getting with the regulatory branch and seeing what can be implemented within that criteria of the canals. There's certain criteria that the canals need to meet to fall under slow zone, idle speeds, manatee zones, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to find out what you are working with and applying to the flow chart.
Okay. Do you know if we have, is that part of our comp plan? Do we have land development codes that direct or provide direction for docks and for, similar to I mentioned earlier about the Lee County's comp plan, which is pretty,
It's all gonna fall under planning and zoning.
okay.
So that's just, that goes through the permitting cycle, just like any other building, and then it has to go through the approval from the state and DEP for approval.
Okay, so that's where the state, the FDEP probably brings in all probably the manatee protections and environmental or wildlife aspects of it. Okay.
Can I ask you a question? When the state came to clear out the canals, did they dredge them when they did that?
No, there's no dredging. We're in the process of doing dredging measurements now, so we're
Okay.
trying to get justification for dredging.
For debris and what have you? Just to turn it
level
over?
or deepen the canals for navigable
Okay.
purposes.
Yeah, because a lot of sediment washes those canals as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's-
But it is like at tens of millions of dollars.
There's still a lot of stuff
And
at the bottom of
furniture,
bars, I can tell you.
houses and-
I mean, we were at the end of the
Boxes.
mosquito district, so I saw barges for the last 6 months, whatever it was. And which, by the way, they pulled out right before the storm. Was that as a precaution of the storm, or were they complete? Do you know?
They were coming to a head, so I think it was kind of a coincidence of them pulling out with the storm on its way.
Okay. I assume maybe they packed up and headed to the bend area.
But yeah, we were getting notifications to anything that needed to be noted and turned over, please get it in immediately. So they are planning on pulling out, and I think that time has come and gone.
Okay. Do you know that some of the canals that they were operating in, when they were dumping, when they were emptying the barges into the trucks, 95% would make it to the trucks, the other 5 would come out. So some of those that they were actually working in are pretty still heavily congested with underwater debris. So I had hoped that maybe they would go through and actually help clean those waterways up that they were using as depots prior to them leaving.
We have requested side scans to be done as well, so we can locate any large pieces that have been left behind, so we can go ahead and get a plan to remove that stuff. We have been getting calls from residents about dock debris and debris like that, so we are working with code and things like that to see what falls on the homeowner's responsibilities and then what falls on the town as far as dock debris and things like that.
Yeah, but I guess I'm pointing specifically at that items that weren't there after the storm. I mean, a lot of it I think is mangroves. At one point they were taking out a lot of dead mangroves,
Okay.
and a lot of that seemed to have had settled in.
Yeah, we've had staff go through and try to identify any large pieces, and then we are relying a lot on residents, but we have requested side scans to be done to locate anything in our waters that can be removed. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be
I don't have
dangerous.
a timeframe on when that's going to be done, but we have requested it with an engineering firm.
Right, gotcha. Right guy, right place, right time, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to, Bird Island, right past Matanzas Bridge.
Yeah, of course.
Does the town have access? Can the town go on that island, or is that the
That's a
county?
no-touch island, no humans are in contact with that.
Even because we were kayaking around there and it is filled with garbage.
Yeah, it's just a no-contact island. FWC monitors that island, they do bird counts, they're well aware of the situation that's going on that island. What I would suggest is contacting the aquatic preserve who does monitor that, and Astero Aquatic Preserve, and they can probably get you some answers going forward with that.
Yeah.
Thank
good.
you.
Do you know if they're back in their office over there next to Benita Bill's?
I just met with them, and I do not believe they're back in their office. It slips my mind where they said they're stationed at this point, but I do run into them weekly, so I'll get some information, see if I can relay it to you.
All right. That'd be great.
Estero
Bay,
Aquatic
Aquatic
Reserve.
Aquatic Reserve, right?
They used to be over there.
That's where-
Wants to go back.
Where we used to get supplies.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his name is Cray, I think. Have her contact info if you want it.
Oh, yes, I do have a contact.
Do you? Okay, good. All right, so on the subject of residential canals, where else, is there any recommendations to council on the subject? I mean, besides, this is a potential issue coming up. I mean, what is the town prepared to, do they have the resources? Do they have the codes to move the town in the direction that they want to move in with these types of things coming up? I mean,
Yeah, just let them know that we're concerned and we see the need to head off any problems.
on behalf of the public comments from
Exactly.
last meeting.
Right, and I think we should let the people who did the public comment know that we are behind them and we'll work with them.
Mhm.
But we don't really know what we can do because,
Well, we'll offer our services, I
Just,
suppose, to say if there's something we need to do to help the council, we can do it.
And I want to say there's a waterway ordinance, but
We're gonna have to jump
But
into,
I'm
jump
not
into,
in
jump into the muni
ordinances.
codes again and just start
Yeah,
looking. I
yeah.
mean, that's it's a rabbit hole. Wow.
so I agree, we should support the residents.
I think we should at least let them know that we
We heard them loud and
empathize with
clear.
their concerns. We hear their, and
Sure.
we're pursuing.
Is there a motion? Is somebody prepared to put a motion together?
What do we want to do? All we want to do is let them know.
Well, let them know that there's, this concern that exists, and obviously they can go to public comment as well. I think at a town council meeting, let their voice be heard as well, but I guess offer, like I said, identify that it's a concern and that if they find during this process that some of it falls into the MERF venue, we'd be happy to work on it.
So if Murph went to town council and told the town council of our concerns and the residents' concerns and advise them to put it on an agenda or,
I don't know if we could do that yet.
Have some way where they can specifically articulate their concern, like the specific problem. Because
Yeah,
like, there's a lot of overarching things we're talking about, but like a specific, like what is it that you're worried about and what is it that you feel like could be done when they come talk?
All right, try this. We've become aware and emphasized with beach residents who have expressed concerns with canal, I can't read my own writing, canal development.
I would maybe also add what those.
Potential
Yeah,
problems.
right, like
Potential.
potential
Yeah, that's what I
erosion,
And what you were saying, when you're saying development, you're saying because of increased
Okay,
traffic,
traffic flow.
you know.
so we've become aware of potential erosion,
from
traffic,
commercial traffic. I call
Commercial,
okay, pollution.
it.
pollution.
Ecosystem, degradation of the ecosystem, basically.
Yeah.
Write faster. No. Just keep
All right,
taking
see
notes.
if it makes
Okay.
sense. The Marine Resources Task Force has become aware of potential problems with our existing canals. There's the possible erosion, I'm gonna have to read. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Did you say degradation to the environment,
Yeah, the ecosystem.
ecosystem? Kind of covers it all.
Mm-hmm.
Become aware
And wildlife,
from resident input.
manatee protection. Put in manatee protection if you don't
Could be a
mind, please, Rose.
long-
Resident,
Log motion.
Noise pollution.
well, you
Noise
have to articulate
pollution.
what our concerns are, but at this point, it's a concern, we're not providing advice, obviously.
So are the two, can I, Austin, do you mind if I ask a question?
Go.
Are you aware of the commercial cruises that, go looking for dolphin watching, things like that? Are they allowed to go into those canals
Yes.
to,
I'm on one of them.
oh,
They are,
they
yeah.
are allowed to go into residential canals?
Yeah, it's all navigable waterways.
Oh, no, okay, I see.
There's one specific one down closer to the, we don't do them here at Fort Myers Beach anymore, but when I did, and then I know a couple of the captains that have their own little pontoon boats that go around. There's a couple specific canals that they take people down to see iguanas. They poke in to see them and then they leave and that, but the ones that I know of and the ones that I was part of, we made it a point to tell the people, hey, this is people's homes, be quiet, pictures only kind of thing, don't make noises. So and everyone I've heard of is doing good with that. But yeah, it's legal to go.
Were there residential complaints ever made
Not that I've ever
from
heard
it?
of. No.
Yeah,
Nobody ever came out and yelled at us. They'd come out and point at them for us, but that's about it.
yeah, I mean.
They say the names.
I
That's
think
Bill.
the point is that we understand it's navigable waterways, but obviously if you have a commercial marina, or is it a marina? Does it have to be labeled a marina or a drop-off point on a commercial property? That's obviously going to be a regular.
Well, it's like, what's the one down at the south end? Is that Salty Sam? Or not Salty Sam. The one-
Fishtail.
Fishtail. They have tours that go in and out of there, and the canals,
Yes.
it's at the end of the canal, and they have their tour boats come in and out, just fine.
It's a commercial marina.
It's a commercial marina.
It's very
There's
wide.
Salty Sam's and
Right.
and Fishtail,
But I
Snow
think
Fight,
it's been there a long time,
Moss
Right.
Marina.
Right.
like even before.
So is that the kind of permit that they would have to apply for? Is it commercial?
I think it's uncharted,
Let's
is it
say,
uncharted water?
at the end of
Pun
this,
intended, but it's,
at the end of this canal down by the theater, is that a restaurant?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So
so,
if there's no dock there right now, but let's say they put in a dock there by the parking lot or whatever, there's nothing really stopping them. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There's nothing stopping them from getting a little pontoon boat and doing their own tours, correct?
Yeah.
Right. Is that is something like that specifically what the residents are worried about?
I think also they're worried about, people coming to the restaurant by boat, back and forth, and then also like for.
Well, that's on the restaurant then. If they put a dock in, that's on the restaurant then to not allow that. They just put no dock in. Like that's because it's a private thing. So that's what they do at a lot of other places where if they have a dock for their specific, whether it's their tour boat, their boats or whatever it may be, maybe if they started doing rentals or something, they just put up no docking sign, and that's where you can legally get on people for docking, and because it's a private
What's
dock.
their intention?
this intent, from my understanding, and again, this isn't official by any stretch of the imagination, but my understanding is that it's actually, I think London Bay actually tends to, and I can't remember if I think it's Charlie's Boathouse, is just going to be a receiving point for literally tourists from, the Ritz or that they own across the bay to bring their shuttles over and then bring them across the street to the property, I think at the outrigger that they own. And it's just a shuttle depot. So there'd be shuttles of people coming back and forth
Right.
every day. Is my understanding. Again, I could be entirely wrong, but that's I believe is what I've
And what
seen and
about
read.
the old beach theater?
That's the one I can't speak for. I don't know any really.
We don't have a.
I haven't heard anything
permits
about
or
that, or I
anything?
don't know what's happening there besides the
Oh, we
destruction
hear
of the
rumors.
mangroves. Yeah.
Well, and I thought the residents, because I listened to that meeting that I missed, and I thought they were concerned too about people wanting to go to the restaurant, not being able to get a boat slip because there's only gonna be a few, and then trying to park at one of their private docks and walk
Mhm.
into the restaurant. There was that trespassing thing.
Mhm. Okay, so I understand their concerns for sure.
The Marine Resources Task Force has been informed about and shares the concerns of beach residents with canal front properties. We share their concerns for ecological harm, erosion, commercial traffic, manatee protection, and request council address these concerns. What are we asking
Is that a
for?
motion?
But you also,
I don't know. I'm thinking about the verbiage here.
I'm just thinking within this is that it's about the commercial development of the canals, not just the canals themselves. it's about what changes are people opposed to going forward?
So can I ask a question, Bill?
Sure.
That's a FGCU that's here on a tour, by the way.
I saw the bus come in.
Students, yeah. So if there's a property that's zoned commercial, they never had a dock there, but it's on the water, but they never had a dock before. If they have if in commercial zoning, are they allowed to automatically build a dock because they own the property?
I think
that's
there's rules on docks that apply to everybody. I don't think having diminished or accentuated rights because they're commercial necessarily, maybe with the usage, because commercial is more of a usage in some ways too. But I think, like Austin said, everyone has, it's just like you can't say someone bought a truck they can't drive on your street. It's a kind of a similar right of way. So, I mean, if they approve, if the council approves the development, then that comes with those rights, I think.
Does it? Yeah, so I guess that's what I know. I mean, just
Unless
because
it's
the property is zoned commercial, does that extend then into the waterway? Or is it just, I mean, again, we're not attorneys, we're not the land planners, we're not, I think we don't even
I mean,
touch.
if they have commercial use of
Can't
their
touch that.
property, I would assume they'd have commercial use of the dock.
Once whatever happens, I think it's really going to be on the residents to just be vocal about what's happening. Like if they're really worried about, like, that's what I'm saying specifically, what are they worried about? If it's the environment, okay, yes. If it's noise, like there's different ways. Right, but if there's different ways that they can go about finding who they need to report to get them, because if it's noise, but a lot of it's going to fall on the business to try to keep things, if and when it does happen, it's going to fall on that business to keep the boats quiet, keep them going slow on their captains and stuff.
Yeah, but they're on the way back. I mean, they're coming to have fun,
No, I know.
vacation again. Everybody loves.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where they can get it in noise.
So those last couple out during the day are going to probably have people that have enjoyed a few beverages and hooting and hollering, which, hey, I've been there myself, but.
Well, my point is like if it's allowed to happen, it's going to turn into a lot of other issues.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Sandball.
we'll work on this. We'll work on this motion, and at this point, that's I think that's what we can do for now. And if we're directed by town council to look into something, we can investigate.
Where says.
Yeah, Murph has been informed of possible commercial changes to Fort Myers Beach canal usage. Murph shares the owner's concerns that any usage change will affect, and then we have that whole litany of things that it might affect.
Mhm.
And then, so we are going to ask the council to address these concerns? Is that the verbiage, or what are we asking them to do? Besides letting them know that we're aware of it, what?
Residential canals.
Yeah.
In other
Okay.
words. We're not worried about the ones that are already established for commercial traffic.
Commercial marinas, yeah.
Commercial change to present day, to
Residential.
present,
Residential canals,
so what are we asking for?
I think it's more, I don't think, well, we're just stating that this concern exists, and that if they so direct Murph to,
Look into it.
So we can
if
just
there's any
say address
specific
this change.
if there's any specific aspect that Murph can provide assistance with, we will.
And
basically-
offer our assistance.
Yeah, offer our assistance.
I mean, we could find out what other barrier islands.
I mean, we do a
repair.
lot of research, we do a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
research. I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
people really
Sandball,
understand how much
Oh,
time.
yeah, sandball.
So,
No, I'll rewrite it so that it's legible.
oh, okay.
Can we do that
Could
and then
always
come
watch the
back
recording,
to, do
sure.
something and come back to it?
Sure. We can, so on that subject, I think, any more besides the motion before moving on to, what was last on the agenda?
Effective density.
Effective density and intensity on Bear Island environment. So, so this was originally put on our initiative list and something that we thought we would just look into. And I think the idea behind this, when we discussed it and added it to the initiative list, it was that Murph can make some do research and or provide advice on the effects of density and intensity on a barrier island, and the ecosystem and the environment. So, this has to do with, I don't know, has anybody kind of looked into it at all? I mean, it's very topical.
I've read some articles, but this morning I had a phone meeting with Dr. Gunnels, who is a director and professor of FGCU's biology department. And I tried to take notes. It was right before the meeting and it was really difficult to, but he did give me permission to record the conversation, and I'll be happy to share. It's a few minutes long, maybe 2 minute long, 6, 7, 8, 2.5 minute long, his thoughts on density
Really?
on the island. Would
Yeah, I
You
want you to
all
read another record. Can
like
you
to hear?
replay
Yes,
it right
please.
here by the microphone?
Okay, if you just give me a minute to set it up.
Oh. I was gonna say, you can probably just put your phone by the microphone. She's got her little box. There you go. And this is Dr.
Dr. Gunnels,
Gunnels.
I have he's
FGCU, did you say?
FGCU director and professor of the biology department at FGCU. And again, he did give me permission to record.
Okay.
He also gave me his thoughts on boardwalks and walkovers, but that can be another meeting. Okay, here we go. You had allowed me to record this conversation, and if you don't mind, just sort of, the question was, I wanted to know your thoughts on